been in the occupied land, how Israel in the occupied land, that means in the West Bank now, been treating Palestinian children. And my faith truly is really shaken. I mean, I'm not only shaken, I'm shaken to the core. And I don't know what to do to regain the faith I had. I mean, I'm 80 years old, and I've been, for the last 20 years, believing that love is the solution and peace is the way. Today, right now, after I've seen the way that children been treated for the last few years and listened to witnesses, Israeli witnesses to this, ex-soldiers, I have a problem. Psychologically, I have a problem. I even contemplated not coming to today's meeting because I don't want to speak when I'm in that state of feeling totally devastated psychologically.
Well, I would say then that you're in the right place, that when you feel such anger, such frustration, that we need to be among God-fearers, among people who recognize that we are all children of God, despite what we have seen. There was a writing on the wall of one of the concentration camps during World War II, and it said, "I believe in the sun even when I don't see it. I believe in love even when I don't feel it. I believe in God even when I don't see God." And it's important for all of us who are children of God, true believers, to keep the faith, to keep believing that there are loving human beings out there, despite the terror, the horror that we see. My heart goes out to the people in Gaza, in the West Bank, all over Palestine. But I still believe that what we're doing here today and being together is the most important thing we can do for each other at the moment.
Thank you for saying this. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Suhail.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
The floor is yours.
جزاك الله خير. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله على آله وصحبه ومن والاه. And I listened to some of the discussion, and of course that's what everybody is feeling. And as I mentioned this Friday, the pain and anger, and also the feeling of helplessness that you can do nothing, adds to the pain and adds to the frustration. Because when you have a tough situation and you can do something about it, at least your energy can be channeled there. But when you watch like this helplessly, of something that is beyond, it's hard to imagine, not only to live. But at the end of the day, we need to come back to the basics, and that first of all, we need to take the package of this life and the hereafter together, so that things will be assessed differently. That someone who dies unjustly, yes, it is a loss in this life, but if you put the full picture together, then you know that they move to a better place, much better place. That can help. It's not gonna make you feel good or feel okay, but it can alleviate or reduce the level of frustration. The other thing is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will gonna be asking us about things that we were assigned and things that we can do. And that's why I emphasized this last Friday, this idea of thinking globally and acting locally, because we should not be distracted, even though when there is an incident like this that is so frustrating and so painful, that your focus and priority should be on your assignment, your homework, on what you're going to be held accountable about. And that's starting with yourself, and then your family, and then your circle, and then do what you can for any just cause, like the one in Palestine now. Whatever you can do, talk to a representative. If there is a demonstration, participate in it. Public education, prayer, donation, if when it becomes possible, when it is possible. Unfortunately, that's all. And then think about the long term. Think about how our community, with a lot of people in this country and a lot of communities who share with us a lot of values, or we share with them, and how can we, first of all, our community become much more organized, much better organized, and much more efficient, to the point that you can influence policies and not reacting to event. And then how we can join hand and build solid coalitions. Hopefully, some of them will be permanent coalitions, not only like we get together to work on a rally, but will be like we should be part of number of coalitions working on common causes and common issues, because that's the name of the game. I mean, in this country there is money and there is grassroots. You have one or the other. If you have lots of money, then even one individual can be very influential. But if you don't, then it's only the numbers, the level of organization and efficiency, the grassroots work, because the elitist work produces nothing. I mean, if you have leaders of Muslim organizations going and meeting with public officials, those meetings will produce nothing, because they know that they cannot deliver. They don't have an organized community behind them. So that's what, if you want to really think about the long term, that's what we need to do. We need to focus to be much better organized, much more efficient. And then we should become civically engaged in a consistent way, not seasonal and not ceremonial, in a consistent way with an agenda. It's not the civic engagement that people do it for prestige, or do it when there is an occasions like election or crisis. No, we're talking about the civic engagement that is consistent, and it is grassroots. That's, in the long run, we have no option then. Unfortunately, a lot of time, people with the bad agenda are much more organized and much more efficient than people with noble goals and causes. I'm going to excuse myself for a minute. I'll come back, Sean.
I can go answer the question how we can solve the Palestinian issue. In my view, we cannot solve the Palestinian issue unless we solve the Arab world issue. if we cannot liberate Syria or Iraq or Lebanon or Yemen or the rest of the Arab world, we cannot solve the Palestinian issue.
Say that again, brother Abdullah, please.
This is what you talk about it literally last Friday. I don't think we can solve the Palestinian issue. It's no way to solve it unless we solve the problems in Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Yemen, Jordan, Saudi, all the Arab world. If we cannot solve the problem there, it's no way to solve the Palestinian issue, in my view.
I mean, it's not only in your view. I mean, what's happening in Palestine, it is happening because of the weakness of Muslim, Arab and Muslim countries, and weakness of Muslim communities abroad.
Okay.
So I agree. I mean, if we really want, because the balance now, it's not balance of power, if you will, it's very much tilted. So unless you have substantial change in Muslim societies, so that they move from becoming struggling and need help to be able in a position to offer help. Because right now, each country is struggling. They have their own crisis. They have their own problem. So they actually need help, and they cannot provide anything for the Palestinians or for Palestine. So I agree, in the long run, it's both. It's a major change, paradigm shift, revolutionary change that needs to happen in Muslim countries and in Muslim communities, because Muslim communities, they have a big role they can play, especially though the American Muslim community, but also Muslim communities elsewhere. They can have strong say and can make a difference, but of course not by themselves, because they can only be supporting role. It should be there. It should happen in Muslim countries. They get rid of these dictatorships. They have a very vibrant societies, economy, democracy, transparency, accountability, equal opportunity, etc. That's what makes a country or a society thrive. I mean, the Ibn Khaldun, who is considered to be the founder of sociology, made it very clear that justice is the foundation of prosperity. We can see it today. Countries where there is justice, they're prosperous. And when you are prosperous, when you are in good shape, when you have a say in this world, when you have a place at the table, not on the table, at the table, then you can help. And Palestine or the Palestinian cause will not be resolved. I mean, even though Palestinians have, unfortunately, realized or came to conclusion that they are on their own, that nobody is able or willing to help. So they took matters in their hands, and they're realizing that everybody is either wish them good or organizing those demonstrations. Their hearts is with them, but they are not providing anything. I mean, if we can see in the same day in every Arab and Muslim countries huge demonstrations, it's not gonna have any impact. It's probably good for the morale, but it's not gonna make a difference on the ground, because it is clearly that this Israeli government, especially this one, which a bunch of terrorists basically, they don't care. They don't care about the public opinion. They don't care about Israel in general does not care about international law, and they hate United Nations, and they never recognize or abide by the United Nations. But this particular government and this particular time, they are sending a strong message when they attack hospitals that way, that disgusting way, despicable way. That's a message for the world that we don't care, that whatever we want to do, we're going to do it. say whatever you want. Say this is brutal. That's inhumane. Say whatever you want. Make any resolutions in the UN. We're gonna continue. So, and it's very unfortunate that it is happening with a green light from the Biden administration, and that's where you can see our failure, both Muslim community and also people. There are other people, and we have seen even the Jews for peace or Voice for Peace and other community. I'm sure they have the same feeling, but we were not able to turn that feeling, that anger, that pain, that frustration into persistent efforts, grassroots efforts that will force politicians to reconsider at least.
I may add something, Dr. Sohail.
Sure.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
I think at this point of the conflict, there is no immediate resolution. I mean, there are two parties fighting, an aggressor and a victim, basically, in my view, of course. The only thing we can do, if we can do, or others, is send help to Gaza and hope that they somehow win or just keep their grounds. Because when we talk about peace and love, it takes two to tango. If the other party has no wish at all to talk peace or to reduce the violence, then the violence will continue, and we just hope that the people of Gaza, people of Palestine, get some help and resist. Now, in the long run, which is why I'm here, we need to work on the Arab and Muslim communities, which is exactly what we're trying to do here. And the way to do it is to go back to the basis, to square one, where we started here, trying to teach people about mission-driven Muslims, about having a clear understanding of what our great religion is all about. Because I think this goes to the root of things. If the Muslim communities, the Muslim nations, the Arab nations, which is immediately adjacent to Palestine, do not have the correct understanding, do not have the correct faith, are not organized, they don't live their Islam the way they should be living it, they don't understand their Quran the proper way to make them into effective people, then we go back to Palestinians are on their own. People in Lebanon, people in Egypt, people in Syria, they need help themselves. And every now and then we have a disaster like the ones we had in Libya, and Morocco is another thing. It's a natural phenomena, but Libya was not a natural phenomena. It was a case of corruption. So I think at this point, my feeling is if we can send help somehow to Gaza, we should do that. Dua, keeping them in their minds. I'm not against demonstrating, not against contacting Congress. You know, we've been talking about all these things. Of course, we can do that. And if we can turn it into something sustainable and continuous, that would be great in this country specifically and in Europe. But other than that, we just hope that the Gazans somehow get help from Allah and keep their grounds and win for some reason. I think we should continue doing what we are doing. I think we should help each other understand our religion better, improve who we are, become vision-driven, become logical people in the way we deal with our great religion, Islam. And if we can turn that into something, into a snowball somehow, and it grows and becomes better, I don't know how long it will take. It's in the hand of Allah, but we have to make the effort. Then in the long run, we can help not only the Palestinians, but every community or nation that is being under oppression, under occupation. Muslims right now are 1.5 billion to 2 billion, but they are completely helpless, like Sayyidina Rasulullah said, you know, like the foam on top of a I don't know, a river or something. We have no power whatsoever. I mean, we start talking about Muslims in India and Muslims in Burma and Muslims in, I don't know, 100 places. And it comes back to the same thing. We have no power.
Mhm.
And the only way we will get the power is that we will improve our understanding of this religion and start taking responsibility. So I
Mhm.
really believe we should go back always to the core issue. We should spend only little time talking about this and more time trying to improve ourselves and improve our communities.
Well, that's I mean, that's very consistent with the fact that nothing will change until we do. It's a very simple formula. Things are not going to change until we do, and then Muslims will never change with this current understanding of Islam. I mean, we have an understanding of Islam that was frozen and distorted over centuries, and it reached us with the, I mean, deprived or from its power of inspiration and empowerment and its flexibility, and all of this have gone. And we ended up with a version of Islam that does nothing to the person. I mean, you embraced, you probably, all what's going to happen is you're going to start to observe some rituals that you were not doing before. So you'll start praying, fasting, etc. Probably if you were not. And then if you're gonna abstain, like if you were drinking before, you're gonna stop drinking, and that's all. Yeah, that's not what the original Islam was doing to people. The original Islam transforms a person completely. Why? Because it turns that person into someone who's living on purpose, someone who's purpose-driven or mission-driven, someone who today was living for themselves and tomorrow wake up and they are living, they have a cause, they have a mission that is preoccupying them day in, day out, and always making them restless and looking for ways to advance that cause. That transformation is not happening. And this version of Islam, the current version of Islam that you see, will not produce that transformation. They will not, because it is defined in a very shallow and superficial way, and then it was made very rigid and then very irrelevant because it is frozen in time. People, they sit down and they open books that were written like I don't know how many 100 years ago, and they think that's Islam. It's I agree. I mean, without that major transformation, and I'm working on something. I hopefully, inshallah, will be able to finish it soon, which is to put these ideas together in form of a book. And I did that before, book directed more to Muslim Americans, but now it's another one that is directed more to the Muslim world, which is emphasizing this case that there are two major requirements for any Muslim societies, Arab or Muslim society, to go through that transformation. One, national dream with no ideology, with nothing. It's a national dream of justice, prosperity, freedom, etc. National dream that will rally people like the cause of independence, where people, when they were occupied, populations, when they were occupied, they rallied behind the cause of independence, and then they forgot all their differences. Because what you need at the end of the day, it's a mobilization, it's a state of mobilization and unity. That's what will make a difference anywhere in the world. It's a state of mobilization and unity, but sustained. Right now, whether here or in the Muslim world, Muslims can produce that state of mobilization and unity, but only for a short period of time. Why? Because we are still crisis-driven. When we respond to crisis, we forget about our difference. We got mobilized, but that's only for a few weeks or a few days. What is needed is a state of mobilization, sustained state of mobilization and unity. And that can happen only with a national dream or vision. People should believe that their country should be much better than this. that they should be living in a society where there is dignity, where there is freedom, there is justice, there is equal opportunity, there is fair competition, there is a democracy, leadership by consent. Whatever people are living in the advanced nations, the people in Muslim societies should take that as a dream and then should strive to turn it into reality. And they have to know that most of those countries that are advanced now, they were not born like this. But all of them, they were, and we have seen it. We have seen since the 60s and 70s and 80s, we have seen South Korea, we have seen Singapore, we have seen countries, China in the 80s was really in terrible shape. A lot of poverties and hundreds of millions of people in poverty. So we have seen it. It can happen. I mean, if these people have done it, you can do it. So unless we can develop that into a national dream and rally people behind it, and they believe in it, they believe that it is necessary, they believe that it is doable, etc., and then it is worth any sacrifice. That's one. So that's the patriotic drive, if you will, or force or driving force. And then you have a fresh understanding of Islam that emphasize the mission of Islam and the ultimate purposes of Islam. And then if you manage to activate these two engines, then it's how you can synchronize them, how you can turn Islam into a factor of mobilization and unity, rather than now it's basically it's doing exactly the opposite. It's either making people isolated or disengaged, or those versions of Islam, when they activate a person, they push them in the wrong direction. They push them into extremism and terrorism, and they become very destructive force in their own country and in the whole world. But how can we activate that powerful engine of Islam, but geared toward justice and freedom and prosperity and peace and security, the ultimate purposes of Islam and the mission of Tazkiyah and Islah, that your job is just to be your Islamic, your divine mission is to be the best version of yourself and to make this world a better place. That's it. That's the mission of Islam. It's not your job to convert people. It's not your job to judge them. It's not your job to force Islam on people. It's not, that's none of your business. Your job is to try to be the best version of yourself and to maximize your contribution to the greater good, to make this world a better place for everybody. That's all. And to achieve those ultimate purposes of Islam. Without this, we are going nowhere, because now we have societies, if I talk about the Muslim world, we have societies without a national dream. Actually, they are in a state of despair. They're giving up hope. If you tell them that things can be different, say, no, we tried before, it's not going to work. Our situation is hopeless. And they can find all the excuses in the world, conspiracy, etc. And then you have a version of Islam that either shackle people or isolate them or make them disengaged. And then when it mobilizes them, it backfires. When they think they are embracing the mission of Islam, they become a force of destruction, because it's the totally twisted version of Islam. They think that the mission of Islam is to go and fight. No, the mission of Islam is, again, to work on yourself, to be the best version of yourself, and to maximize your contribution to the greater good, and leave people alone, because at the end of the day, religion is a relationship between a person and God, and nobody has anything to do with it. Nobody was given the tools or the task to judge people or to convert them. I'm going to join from my phone, inshallah. So Firas, please, I'm going to leave from here and join from my phone.
Question to Mr. Hugh. What do they feel in your church about the Palestinian issue? Do they recognize that the Palestinian under occupation, or do you think Hamas did mistake? I'm not questioning Hamas did mistake or not, but what they are feeling about it.
It's difficult to say because we are a very diverse congregation in terms of our beliefs. And the people that I've been talking to, we go back to, what did the British do in with the Balfour Amendment and in setting up Israel? What has happened since the 1967 war in the Middle East and the borders that were established after that? There is condemnation for the far right conservative Israelis who have been pushing into the West Bank and making settlements, and there's been condemnation for the U.S. government for not condemning that. I think that was a mistake. We see both the Hamas and these far right conservative Israelis as terrorists and worthy of condemnation. We see people in Palestine and in Israel who truly want peace, but are being jerked around by these extremists on both sides. We see the Israeli Defense Forces as going overboard, and it's really being directed by the Netanyahu government. Those are some of the ideas that we're seeing. We're seeing an outpouring for the Palestinian people. We don't like the heavy-handed response that the Israeli Defense Forces have done. So those are some of the things that I've been hearing about. It's a complex situation, and my personal perspective is much like I've heard in this conversation, is that we need to have a two-state solution. We need to get the Israeli-Palestine settlements out of the Palestine, and we need to find a way for people to live together, Israelis and Palestinians.
It's meaning two-state solution. It's over right now. And Dr. Suhail, he recognized that in Khutbah prayer, Friday prayer, 3 weeks ago. It's too late for it. And the problem, the Israeli, they will not accept one-state solution because the Palestinian, they will be the majority in a few years. The Palestinian, they have 3-4 kids. Israeli, they have 1 or 2 kids. And in 10, 20 years, in one generation, the Palestinian their numbers will be very high. The second issue, you talk about the far right government in Israel. Just imagine election happened tomorrow in Palestine and in Israel. Both government, Hamas and Netanyahu government, they will win the election.
I don't know. The Netanyahu's pulled together. It could not. His own party, a Likud party, I believe it's called, could not govern because they didn't win a majority, and so they pulled in the far right group in order to make a majority coalition. I really don't know what the Palestinian people would vote for. I've read accounts of many of the people many everyday Palestinians who despise Hamas, others who do not. So I'm not an expert on that. I should be reluctant in making conjectures there.
But do you remember Menachem Begin in Israel?
Oh, yes,
he was far right wing. Golda Meir, she was from not the Labour Party, and I don't think she was better than Netanyahu right now.
Oh, I think it was, but again, I'm not that great a student of what's been going on in Palestine and Israel. I'm looking from across the Atlantic Ocean. You say a two-state solution is not going to work.
No, it will not work right now. Look in the map, and you don't see Palestine in the map.
So what do you see there then in the future? I mean, a one-state solution is not going to work.
Why?
Because, like you said, the Palestinians have 3 or 4 kids compared to the Israelis having one. In a one-state solution, the Palestinians would become the majority.
Okay, what's the
Popula-
problem? What's the problem?
The Israelis wouldn't put up with it.
But why? You think right now, if we have, why in America working, why doesn't work there?
I don't think it's going to, I think you're until Israelis and Palestinians do a better job of living together, respecting each other, a one-state solution, I don't think it's going to work. My opinion. I think that I see a 2-state solution as a midterm step, intermediate step to a broader federation, a broader federation, I think is the best word there. That they can't live together. So it's better for them for people to live apart until they can learn to live together. It's a long-term solution from my
whole
perspective.
Palestine is smaller than Virginia. You know that, right? The whole
I would suspect
Palestine.
so. I would suspect. I haven't done the comparison, but I will take your word for it.
It's too small to divide it. And right now, the Palestinian, they are spread all over the country. Yeah, I don't think 2-state solution will work right now. Probably in 1967, see, the Arab, they didn't give the Palestinian 2-state, you know. When the whole West Bank, under the Arab control, the Arab, they didn't give the Palestinian their state. And this was on purpose.
Again, I'm looking for the best long-term solution. I would like to see everybody live together in harmony and peace. And how you accomplish that, in a sense, to me, is neither here nor there. The idea is, in the long term, we all need to live together. For me, I see a 2-state solution as the immediate goal that we need to achieve. I would hope that there could be one country. Safi was talking about having one country called the Holy Land there eventually, starting out basically as a federation with a Palestinian part and Israeli part. I would like to see that's what looks like it would work to me. Again, I'm not an expert on this. I'm really not a stakeholder apart from being a member of the world community. So again, my long-term goal, see everybody learn to live together. We're having a problem with that here in the United States with African Americans, white Americans like me. This is something that's been going on in our country for 400 years. Look how long it's been going. The animosity has been going on in the Holy Land, 3,000 years. It's going to be a long time to do it. But if we have a long-term vision, and like Dr. Suhail was saying, that a vision for a country, a place of peace, of prosperity, of mutual respect, we need to keep that goal in mind. And however we get to that, a 1-state solution, a 2-state solution, something else, is immaterial. We need to keep that long-term goal in mind and do whatever it takes to get there. Whatever works is fine with me.
I think we have one Palestinian guy with us. He can put his input. Muhammad. Muhammad Samaba is from Palestine. He's the only Palestinian with us right now.
I think the problem, if Muhammad want to say something, go ahead.
Muhammad, are you with us?
Muhammad,
go ahead, Dr. Suhail. Dr. Suhail is not with us. Go ahead.
Okay. We're going to have to realize, I mean, yes, we all wish for that solution, whether it is 1 state or 2 states, but things are really much more complicated. The equation is really, if you want to speak about mathematically, has almost no solution, at least in the short term, because the whole Zionist project is built on establishing Jewish state. And that will prevent this idea of 1 state. So there'll be big opposition, ideological oppositions for the one-state solution. So that almost has to be forced. It's not going to happen like willingly. On the other hand, you have the settlers and a large segment. I mean, the Israeli societies in recent time went right after, especially the assassination of Rabin. There is a large also segment who believe not only that we need to keep what we have, no, we need to take more of the West Bank and maybe Gaza, and these Palestinians have to be pushed out completely. And these people are very influential, very powerful. They are in the government now, actually. And you have a fragmented government. I mean, Israel almost never had one party leading it. It's always coalition government. And that you have to cater to everybody. And it's both the two-state solution. There is a very strong opposition. And of course, the situation on the ground now makes it even close to impossible, unless there is a big global movement similar to what happened in South Africa to push for either one, to push for either the one-state solution or the two-state solutions, but real state, viable state, meaning that you stopping settlements or even rolling back the settlements that exist in the West Bank. And that's, at least from what we see now, these can be good dreams or good wishes, but in order to materialize, there must be a much different, much higher level of activism and organizations and sustained work and strong coalitions across the world to tell people to make the case for either scenario, that either the South Africa model or a real two-state solutions with a viable Palestinian state. But without that, you can see how the Israeli government is dealing even with the United Nations, how it is dealing sometimes even with the United States. It's we have to acknowledge that it's a very complex. Plus, we have to accept the fact that Zionist lobbies in the United States in particular and in other parts of the world are very, very powerful. You cannot counteract that power except with the mass movement or grassroots work that is sustained and that continue to make the case. And we have seen some successful cases in this country, and which I mention them all the time. We have seen the anti-smoking movement. I mean, it was ridiculous when they started. It was ridiculous because you are taking on huge corporation who pays lots of money for lobbying, and it was like people probably made fun of them. And then they were able to change the law and change the social norm. And now we have seen it. And I lived in this country to see that the non-smoking sections in restaurants and in public buildings. Now you don't find even smoking section. That's a great success. I mean, when you mobilize and change the law and change the social norm, that's a great success. And whether you like it or not, the LGBT work was able, sustained work that was able to change the law and the laws and change the social norm. Without something like that, this demonstrations when there is a crisis and these petitions and no, that's not gonna change any deeply entrenched policies, especially in this country, which is probably the one with the biggest say in the Palestinian cause. I mean, if there is one country in the world that can really push for one of those two scenarios, it is the United States.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I'm sorry, I couldn't unmute myself, so I had to get out and come back in for some reason. I don't know what it is. But I do agree 100% with whatever Dr. Suhail is saying. The truth is, I think we need to go back to the origin of the issue and go back to the agreements and the international law, and divide, or go back to those maps and push the Israelis into their areas and give the Palestinians their rights. Is this going to be the best solution? It's not going to be quiet. There is a lots of other factors that you need to work on. And one of them, and the main thing, is like we see how Israel is controlling water, electricity, and all of that. You need to work into all of this infrastructure. The situation today where Israel pushed things, we have every city and sometimes even every village is an open jail, an open prison, the way that Gaza was. What happened during this war, it proves that as well. People cannot go and into their land to pick up their olives if they wanted to. Now in the olive season, they couldn't travel. They couldn't go to work. So this is another thing. It's like, what's the source of income of the Palestinians gonna be in those areas, and where until when we're gonna depend on working in there? So this is another issue that needs to be looked at. And but the main thing of this whole thing is like, it's not impossible for the Israeli settlers to get out in order for this to happen. You just need to go back to the international law, tell them that this is either you exist as a Palestinian citizen, you respect the Palestinian side of the law, and have an actually Palestinian government that supports the Palestinian people in there, and not to serve as what the happening with the current Palestinian Authority. You need elected Palestinian government that is going to present everybody, have set up the laws, and protect its own people, and provide them economically with their needs, and protect them from any outside harassment or any outside wars, and protect them, not to hide when Israeli invasion happens, not to allow Israeli military to come in cities and kill people and assassinate people or do any of that. And you need the international law to protect the Palestinians. The situation now, it's not an issue of only dividing the country. There is a lot of complexity that the Israelis put in the ground, like what you see now. We'll talk to them about exchanging prisoners, or they talking about exchanging prisoners. And from 1 hour to another, they don't agree. They think they can use their muscles and their missiles to kill more people. That's going to put more pressure. All of that is like, you need, what Dr. Suhail is saying is, it's like, it's the solution of the issue. If there was a president in the US and politicians who are willing to make a change, and the change is not only for the Palestinians, the changes would be for the whole region and maybe the whole world, who's investing all of this money in wars instead of building schools and building peaceful communities. Now, at this time, we have the United States. If there's a vision in the United States to resolve this issue, they can cut the money to support the settlements. And let's be even more honest at the moment. Like, and I'm sorry for taking more time. If you look at this war, if this war continues for another 6 months, the Israelis will start crying themselves economically, and nobody will be able to support them, even with the U.S. support. The U.S. support is going to send them now 14 billion, and they need 11 billion a month. This is like statistics that I heard yesterday. I don't know how accurate they are, but it seemed like it's very reliable somehow. So if that is the case, after 6 months, they're gonna start crying the way that they cried in the first Intifada and then the second Intifada for a solution. We cannot, and trust me, it's like I hear Dr. Who talking about the complexity of the issue. The word complexity doesn't exist if there is a will of people to solve the issue. The solution is between an occupier who's unoccupied land. The solution is to just pull out, live peacefully, or go back where you are. As Palestinians, the people in Gaza, they don't have a second passport. The settlers do. And there is a lot of evidence that they do. They come from all over the world. There is not such a thing. It's either you live peacefully and you respect the people you live with, or just go back home where you are and where you existed. This is not how we call it. This is not a playground, and it's not a fighting base for everybody just to come and use his muscles in the area. And hopefully that this is going to be obvious after. Hopefully that this is going to be obvious after all of this is done. Can I add one more thing, and I will leave it alone. I've been trying to be quiet. For Dr. Basil, for my brother Basil, and I love you so much. Just so you know, but I'm gonna say one thing: this war is not the last war that the Arabs or Palestinians or the Arab world is gonna have with Israel. If we, based on what we believe, it's just the start, and hopefully that this gonna give a start to go and free what's happening in Syria, and go and do the change in Egypt, and go and do the change in the other world. And so hopefully that this is going to be the opening for that. And thank you. And I'm sorry for taking so long.
Brother Muhammad, I was listening to Israeli commentator a couple of weeks ago. And this is what he said. If we give the Palestinian, just imagine, he said, the West Bank and Gaza Strip, they will do against Israel the way Hamas did from Gaza Strip against Israel. This was his view. What do you think about it? You know, we have to listen to them to understand their position, and after that, we talk. You know, we cannot just talk without understanding their.
No, you're right. You're right. We need to listen, and we need to listen to both sides. Our side was not listened to, and nobody heard it. And you're absolutely just right. We need to listen to what they're talking about. But the truth is, it's like if I don't trust you, I won't even be sitting here and talking to you. So trust needs to be built between both sides, and the willingness needs to be built between both sides, and the willingness to live in peace. There is lots of voices in there. I don't know how influential they are, but there is a lot of voices that they want to give the Palestinians their rights. And there is a lot of voices who does not, like Netanyahu and what Netanyahu and the settlers and the fanatics are doing there. But trust me, if you provide, it's like you mentioned this it's like in many different times. If you give people work, good living, their freedom to move, and their rights, and you give them their portion of water, electricity, and their independence, you will have peace. But if you jail people and you steal their water, steal their land, demolish their houses, and cut their trees when you please, and the list goes on and on, I will not come. It's like you will have a conflict all the time. But if you leave them alone and you work peacefully with them, they might start getting married from each other. And trust me, it's not too far of happening, because it happened already. So if you give them some time to live in peace and feel that peace and give them their freedom, they might come back and start getting married from each other and mixing up like the way a lot of people live here.
Okay. Jazakum Allah khair, if nobody has another question, and Dr. Sohail is gone, and I think we can. Do you guys, we want to meet next Sunday, the holiday weekend, or you don't? Okay, anyway, we will post if we have a class next Sunday or not. But right now, I think we have a class next Sunday. Okay?
Assalamu alaikum.
Okay, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.